Learning English felt like an uphill battle for me. I was excited to learn at first, but the more I tried, the more frustrated I became. I was stuck, unsure why my efforts weren't working. I thought maybe I wasn't smart enough or talented enough to learn a new language. But over time, I realized the truth. The problem wasn't me. It was the mistakes I was making. These weren't just small errors. They were habits and approaches that were holding me back. And here's the thing, most people make these same mistakes without even realizing it. Today, I want to share the 5 biggest mistakes I made while learning English so you don't have to go through what I did. Trust me, once you identify and fix these mistakes, your learning journey will become faster, easier, and much more enjoyable. And the best part? You'll gain confidence in ways you never imagined. So let's dive in. Mistake number 1. Being afraid to make mistakes. I'll never forget my first English class. I was sitting in the back row, hoping my teacher wouldn't call on me. My palms were sweaty, and my heart was pounding. And then it happened. She asked me a question. I stammered, mispronounced the words, and felt everyone's eyes on me. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. For years, I let that fear control me. I was terrified of making mistakes, so I avoided speaking English altogether. I thought, if I don't try, I won't embarrass myself. But looking back, I realized that was the biggest mistake of all. Here's the truth. Mistakes are not your enemy. They're your best teacher. Every time you mispronounce a word or use the wrong grammar, you're one step closer to getting it right. Think of it like riding a bike. You probably fell a few times when you were learning, but you didn't give up. Language learning is the same. What helped me overcome this fear was changing my mindset. I started seeing mistakes as a sign of progress. If I wasn't making mistakes, it meant I wasn't trying. So here's my advice. Speak, even if you're not perfect. Focus on progress, not perfection. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Mistake number 2, focusing too much on grammar. When I first started learning English, I became obsessed with grammar. I spent hours memorizing rules about tenses, prepositions, and sentence structures. I thought, if I master grammar, I'll master English. But here's what happened. When it came time to speak, I froze. Why? Because I was so focused on getting everything grammatically correct that I forgot the most important part of communication, being understood. I would second-guess every sentence, worrying about whether I was using the right verb or article. It made me slow, hesitant, and frustrated. One day, I had a conversation with a native English speaker, and they said something that changed my perspective. Nobody cares if your grammar is perfect. They care about what you're trying to say. That's when I realized I needed to shift my focus. Instead of aiming for perfect grammar, I started aiming for clear communication. For example, instead of worrying about saying, I have not eaten today because I forgot my lunch, I simply said, I didn't eat today. I forgot my lunch. The message was the same, and it felt so much easier to say. So, if you're stuck focusing too much on grammar, remember this. Grammar is important, but it's not everything. Start with simple sentences. Once you're comfortable communicating, you can work on refining the details. Mistake number 3, trying to learn everything at once. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things you need to learn in English? That was me. I would look at long lists of vocabulary words and think, I need to memorize all of these today. I thought that if I knew more words, I would automatically be better at English. But what happened instead was that I forgot almost everything I learned. The problem wasn't my effort, it was my approach. Learning a language isn't about cramming, it's about consistency. Trying to learn too much at once is like trying to drink from a fire hose. It's overwhelming and ineffective. What changed everything for me was focusing on small, manageable chunks of learning. Instead of trying to memorize random vocabulary, I started learning words in context. For example, instead of just learning the words beautiful, I learned phrases like, the sunset is beautiful, or you have a beautiful smile. By using the words in sentences, I remembered them better and felt more confident using them in real conversations. Here's a tip for you. Focus on learning 5 to 10 new words a day and make it a goal to use them in sentences. It's not about how many words you know, it's about how well you can use them. Mistake number 4, neglecting speaking practice. This might be the most common mistake of all, spending too much time reading and writing and not enough time speaking. When I first started learning English, I thought I could become fluent just by studying books and doing exercises. I spent hours reading grammar guides and writing essays. But when it came time to actually talk to someone, I froze. I didn't know how to form sentences quickly, my pronunciation was awkward, and I couldn't keep up with the conversation. It was incredibly frustrating because I felt like all my hard work wasn't paying off. That's when I realized that speaking is a skill, and like any skill, you need to practice it regularly. The more you speak, the more confident you become. Here's what worked for me. One day talking to myself, I started narrating my daily activities in English, like, I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm making tea. It felt silly, but it helped me get comfortable forming sentences. 2. Finding a partner. I joined an online language exchange group where I could practice with other learners. We corrected each other's mistakes and encouraged each other to keep going. 3. Recording myself. I recorded myself speaking on my phone and listened to the playback. It was awkward at first, but it helped me identify areas where I needed to improve. If you're not practicing speaking regularly, start today. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, it will make a huge difference. Mistake number 5, expecting instant results. This was probably the hardest lesson for me to learn. When I started learning English, I thought I would become fluent in a matter of weeks. I'd watch videos of fluent speakers and think, if they can do it, why can't I? But the truth is, learning a language takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And the sooner you accept that, the more enjoyable the journey becomes. There were days when I felt like I wasn't making any progress. I would study for hours, but I'd still struggle with basic conversations. It was discouraging, and I often wondered if I should just give up. But then, something clicked. I realized that progress isn't always obvious in the moment. Sometimes, it's only when you look back that you see how far you've come. For example, a year after I started learning English, I found an old notebook where I'd written my first sentences. They were full of mistakes, but they reminded me of how much I had improved. I could now write full paragraphs, have conversations, and understand movies in English. That's when I learned to celebrate the small victories. Even if you're not fluent yet, every step forward is progress. Here's what I want you to remember. Don't focus on how far you still have to go. Focus on how far you've already come. Learning English is a journey, and every day you're getting better, even if it doesn't feel like it. How I fixed these mistakes. Now that you know the 5 biggest mistakes I made, let's talk about how I fixed them. These strategies helped me break through the frustration and finally start making real progress in English. 1. Embrace mistakes as part of the process. The first thing I did was change my mindset about mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, I started seeing them as opportunities to learn. Every time I made a mistake, I asked myself, what can I learn from this? For example, if I mispronounced a word, I would look it up, practice saying it correctly, and use it in a sentence the next day. Over time, I stopped being afraid of mistakes and started using them to improve. 2. Balance grammar with communication. I still studied grammar, but I stopped letting it control me. Instead of focusing on every tiny rule, I focused on speaking clearly and getting my message across. I realized that it's okay to say, I go to the store yesterday, instead of, I went to the store yesterday, as long as people understand you. Once I stopped obsessing over grammar, I started speaking more naturally and confidently. 3. Learn in context. To fix my habit of trying to learn everything at once, I started focusing on learning in context. For example, instead of memorizing the word excited, I learned phrases like, I'm excited about the weekend, or are you excited for the trip? By learning phrases, I didn't just memorize words, I learned how to use them in real conversations. This made a huge difference in my ability to remember and apply what I was learning. 4. Practice speaking every day. Speaking became my priority. Even if I only had 5 minutes, I made sure to practice every day. I talked to myself while cooking, I practiced with language partners online, and I even started recording short videos of myself speaking English. At first, it was hard, but the more I practiced, the more natural it felt. Now, speaking English feels as comfortable as speaking my native language. 5. Be patient and consistent. Finally, I stopped expecting instant results and started focusing on consistency. I made a routine where I practiced English for 30 minutes every day. Some days I watched videos. Other days I wrote in my journal or practiced speaking. It didn't matter what I did, as long as I kept going. Over time, those small efforts added up, and my confidence grew. What you can do starting today. If you've made any of these mistakes, don't worry. It's never too late to change your approach. Here's what you can do right now to start learning faster and speaking more confidently. 1. Speak more. Make it a goal to say at least one sentence in English every day. Even if it's just, I'm learning English, it's a step in the right direction. 2. Learn in chunks. Instead of memorizing random words, learn phrases you can use in real life. For example, instead of just learning the word hungry, learn the phrase, I'm hungry. Let's eat. 3. Find a partner. Join an online language exchange group or download an app like HelloTalk or Tandem. Practicing with others will boost your confidence and help you learn faster. 4. Record yourself. Start recording yourself speaking English. It might feel awkward at first, but it's a great way to track your progress and identify areas for improvement. 5. Be patient. Remember, learning a language takes time. Celebrate your small victories and trust that you're getting better every day. Why avoiding these mistakes matters. Avoiding these mistakes isn't just about learning English faster, it's about building your confidence. When you stop being afraid of mistakes, focus on communication, and practice consistently, you'll start to feel more comfortable using English in any situation. And that confidence will show in everything you do, from conversations with friends to job interviews and beyond. Let me leave you with this. Learning English isn't just about speaking another language. It's about opening doors. It's about connecting with people from around the world, accessing new opportunities, and discovering your own potential. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect to get started. You just have to try. So, take that first step today. Speak one sentence, learn one phrase, or practice for 5 minutes. It might not seem like much, but every little effort brings you closer to fluency. You're stronger and more capable than you realize, and I promise you, the journey is worth it. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's also learning English. And in the comments, tell me, which of these mistakes have you made? Let's talk about it and learn from each other. Together, we can all improve.